Hello everyone. Today we're here to talk about Mr. Herb Rieser, who passed away just the other day. And I'm a bicycle courier now in Vancouver for over 30 years. And believe it or not, we've known Herb in our little community for that long, 30 years. So what I want to talk about is how Herb came to know us and what he did for us or with us. And I also want to address a couple of anecdotes. So Herb was in a prayer group at 885 West Georgia where we all hang out. And after the prayer meeting one day, they had some sandwiches left over because they would cater to the meeting. And anyway, he brought the sandwiches down to the front and he gave them out to the various fellows that were there. And they really enjoyed it. And so I think Herb kind of got the idea, and he started to come out every week. And for many years, he brought these beautiful lemon muffins that his wife would cook. And I never met her, but by all accounts, she was a wonderful person. So anyway, as time went by, Herb got to know a lot of folks. I mean, back in the day when he first started coming out, there was something on the order of 200 couriers working every day, and he knew many of us. And as years went by, he would join us for different social events. I think he showed up at a couple of races, and he also would come to our Christmas parties. And the thing about Herb was deeply religious man, and he came armed with his scripture, and he would talk to the masses. And we are not, as a group or even individually, I don't think many of us are religious, really. I've never heard anyone talk about it anyway. But Herb just made the effort. He just made the effort to come out and befriend us. And I've heard people talk about that. One person referred to him as a sort of father figure. And another person talked about how, he really had a settling effect on us. And, the truth is, I think that really speaks to the notion of a pastor. So in a real sense, we were his flock and he was our pastor. Most couriers, what's interesting about it, I think, is that Herb saw in us a sort of normal that he wasn't familiar with. And for our part, we saw in him a normal that we weren't familiar with. And, it kind of was a nice mix. I think, just the effort that he made to come and visit with us and to listen to our stories and to tell us what was going on in his life, that was golden. And, which kind of leads me to another story. So, Herb, about 2006, I had this brainstorm idea that we would have a mountain bike party, because a lot of us were mountain bikers, you see. So I gave out flyers to all the buddies. I was hoping that, other couriers would come and experience it just the way I liked it, right? Anyway, so Herb found out about it, and he phoned me up, and he said, "Hey, Jeff," he says, "you think I could come?" And I said, "Well, Herb, the thing is that we're all going to be meeting in the parking lot, and then we're going to drive up the mountain and ride down the mountain, and you're going to be alone for, as long as 2 hours." He said, "Oh, that's okay, Jeff, So the day of the event, Herb's there, and, he brought his little station wagon Subaru and his little foldable picnic table, and he brought a 5-gallon of water, and he perched it all on the table, and, we talked, and then we got in the truck, we drove up to the top. So anyway, I came back down. I just dropped everybody up, and I came down, and that probably took about an hour. And then by the time I got down, well, Herb was here. Here he was talking to, 7, 8, 10 guys all sitting around him, drinking his water and telling him all about how much they love mountain biking. Which is kind of, that's not a thing that people generally do, all right? But I do want to lend a more personal anecdote, and this is what Herb kind of meant to me. So you can imagine around 2010, I had an elderly aunt who was, she was living by herself. She was a shut-in. She was estranged from her daughter, and her son had left and fled to Toronto, and she was left alone. So, you know, I stepped up and I was doing this, buying her groceries and, you know, just generally paying attention to her. And at some point, I was feeling a little bit taken for granted. So not by her so much as by her son. So I called her son one night, you know, and I didn't get him on the phone. I went down to change my laundry and I came back and there was this really awful, angry message, you see. And I was really kind of hurting, you know. So one day I was down in Yaletown riding my bike, and here comes Herb walking up the sidewalk. And I stopped him and I said, "Oh, Herb," I said, "you know, you've been helping people for a long time. I said, is it too much to expect gratitude?" Well, Herb laughed and he cited a scripture and he said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Because gratitude is an expectation, and we don't help people for gratitude. We help them because they need it, you see." And so the next day I went to my aunt's and I said, "You know, as long as you need me, I'll be here for you," you see. And I just let go of that whole idea. And it was liberating, really. And I can't tell you how good I felt to have done that and to have and just been part of it. And all I had to do was make the effort. Okay, I want to tell you that for sure. But I wouldn't have been able to really go there without Herb's guidance. And so that's what I want to tell you today. He's a great man. I mean, you know, he gave me advice from his heart. You know, there was nothing, he didn't expect anything for it. He just gave it as a friend, and it helped me immensely. So finally, what I want to say is, Herb, you know, I've heard him say it more than once, and I personally have said this many times. You know, he said, "Jeff, you know, in real estate, it's location, location, location. But in life, it's relationship, relationship, relationship." And that's where Herb had a real, he had the social virtue of going out and meeting people. And that was a strength and something he gave to the world. You know, we weren't the only part of his flock. Herb would go and minister at the Belkin House, a halfway house for people coming out of jail, and he would tell me stories. And he also would take seriously invalidic people out in his little sailboat. And, you know, he told me one day, he said, "Jeff, you know, a lot of these people can't even talk." He says, "But, you know, when I bring them in and get them out of the boat," he said, "the look in their eyes is gold." And that really made him feel good. So, you know, compassion, honesty, and just a really good nature. I mean, these are all the ingredients in a good person, you know. And I think for my part, you know, Herb told me that he became born again in 1964, and he would tell me the story, and then he'd say to me, "Jeff, you know, I want that for you." And I said, "Well, Herb, you know, I was raised a Catholic." I said, "I just don't look at the world quite like that." And that wasn't a rebuff or anything like that, because I really understood, you know, what that meant. But in the end, I think it was his sort of guiding, it was the thing that kept him focused, and it was the thing that made him feel good, and it was the thing that's true. And whether you believe, you know, in other kinds of religion, you have to believe in the fact that it gives a strength of character, and that was what Herb is and meant to us. So I can't really speak for the other couriers, except that I know that he was beloved, and there's not many of us around anymore. You know, there's probably 25 when there was once 200 or more. And what's interesting about that too is that there's a few of us left over that we remember Herb. You know, and like I said, Herb came out for the best part of 30 years, and he was fantastic. He was a great friend to all of us. And that's what I have to say. So God bless you, Herb. You really changed some lives just by being there. Okay?